Hello, and welcome to How to Play Space Shot. I'm Carl from Sharpnose Games. The meteor is on its way, and the apocalypse is coming. Space Shot is a game where you build a deck, build a company, build a rocket, and escape Earth. Let's start by setting up the play area. The play area contains the following items: the bank, the investments area. You place one fewer investment of each type than the number of players. With two of each type, this is set up for a 3-player game. The factories area. Fill all spaces in the rocket factory for a 4-player game. See the instructions for what to do with fewer players. Then use the dice to randomly select the parts for the life pod, biologic, and cargo factories. The apocalypse track. Start the meteor at the top of the apocalypse track. Settlement points. This is where players keep track of their score. Place one marker for each player at the top of the settlement points track. The core cards area. Core cards are denoted by the blue border. Stack the survival cash cards from least expensive on top to most expensive on bottom. All of these cards are purchased directly during the auction. More on this when we cover the auction phase. Survival cash cards do not go in your hand or discard pile. They are stored in your player area until the end of the game. The hiring pool. These cards all have a silver border. Shuffle the hiring pool deck and lay out 6 cards next to it. Be sure to leave room for the hiring pool discard pile. This will be empty at the start of the game and is shown here as an example. Each player starts with a standard deck of 8 cards. These are denoted by the green border. Players receive their player mat and player tokens. Players must shuffle their initial deck and draw 5 cards into their hand. Shown here is a player with a personal bank of gold coins, their deck, and their discard pile. This player also has the white first player token. The first player token goes to the person who has most recently gazed at the stars and will move throughout the round. All players play simultaneously except for the auction, where players take turns bidding on rocket engines, rocket parts, and cards. Each round contains 4 phases: passive income, auction, action, and round reset. Let's look at the passive income phase. Performing the special event. Some rounds have a special event. This round is the employee lottery. You can see this is farther into the game. You can see the meteor is down on round 10. The employee lottery is a special event where each player, starting with the first player token, draws the top card from the hiring pool deck and then either chooses to discard that card back into the hiring pool discard or bring it into their own player discard hand for free. Other special events have free money, cards, or investments. Subsidies are taken directly from the bank. Board members are cards that, when retired, move to the player's board of directors. More on retirement when we talk through the action phase. They provide their dividend value each round without taking up a spot in the player's deck. In this case, William will provide 3 coins worth of income each round. This is denoted by the hand and coins icon on his card. Open staff spots provide $1 billion coin each. In this case, the player held over Margaret from the previous round and will only receive the coin for the open top spot. During the passive income phase, the player rotates the investment tokens 1 step counterclockwise. If the rotation step moves the investment token to the pay section, The investment pays out and is returned to the bank. Investments display their minimum cost above the center line and their payout value below the center line. In this case, a $10 minimum cost and a $16 payout. Now let's look at the auction phase. Bids start with the first player token. Players make one bid per turn, and play passes to the left. A player may outbid another player, and the original player returns their bid to their pile and may use it on their next bid. Minimum bid. Cards are the cost in the upper left-hand corner. Investments are the amount above the center line. Rocket parts are the number of squares the rocket part covers, and rocket engines are the cost below the engine in the factory. Let's look at an example. The red player bid $7 billion on Martin, meeting the minimum bid shown in the upper left of his card. The blue player bid $8 billion on Martin, outbidding the red player. The red player immediately removes their bid and can use those funds when it is their turn to bid again. More on the auction phase. Rocket engines must be bid for in order of most expensive to least expensive. A player may outbid another player on a rocket engine, or they may choose to bid on the next most expensive engine. When all players have finished bidding, players move their winning bids to the bank and collect their cards, parts, and engines. Cards enter the player discard pile. Parts and engines go into the parts area of the player mat. The player may not collect their part or engine if they already have the maximum 5 items in their parts area. Players who win a rocket engine must leave their player token on the location where they won the rocket engine. Rocket engines require the same amount of rocket engineering expertise to install as they cost. Leaving the token allows players to know how much their installs will require. Once the player has installed the engine in their rocket, they can remove the token from the rocket factory and move their token on the settlement points track forward the amount indicated on the rocket factory board. Action phase. All players play their hands simultaneously. Players may take as many actions as they can in any order. Let's look at some cards. Each card can perform one of the available actions on a turn. For example, Willard could be used to gain $2 billion in income, or could help install a rocket engine, providing 2 expertise. Todd can be played for $3 billion in income. Tasha, like Willard, can be played for either income or to help with installing a rocket engine. Engineer types have different specialties for helping install rocket parts and engines, but can help with any. An engineer may only help install one rocket part or engine per play, but more than one engineer can help install a single part or engine. Let's look at installing a part. We have a size 4 cargo piece and want to install it. We also have a size 3 life pods piece. If we have our same engineers in our hand, we can see that we have a total of 4 cargo engineering expertise and can install the part. We could also use Marla and Monica to install the size 3 life pod and place Ichiro in a staff spot for next turn in the hopes that we will draw another engineer that could help install the cargo rocket part on our next turn. Once installed, rocket parts cannot be moved. A player may choose to use the same amount of engineering expertise to remove a rocket part and place it back in their parts area. If they do this, they may install it again in a different place using the normal install process. Strategies change sometimes, so players may choose to recycle any rocket parts in their parts area back to the factory. They receive no compensation for this, but it can be used to free up space in the parts area when needed. Next up, retiring cards. The cost to retire a card is the same as the minimum bid. In this case, Willard and Todd would be $3 billion and Tasha would be $2 billion. Retiring cards is a separate action than playing cards. So you could play Tasha from your hand for 2 billion and then use those same 2 billion to retire her. Hiring pool cards, the silver borders, are retired to a hiring pool discard pile unless otherwise stated on the card. Core cards, the blue border, go back to their stack when retired. Starter cards, the green borders, are removed from the game upon retirement. You may recall we mentioned executives in the passive income phase. On the left, you can see Margaret. She's an executive, and instead of being removed or placed back in the discard pile when she is retired to the player's board of directors, giving the player a lesser, but every turn, passive income. If a player wants to keep a card for the next round, they may place it in one of the two staffing locations. You can see here on the right. Here we have a player who chose to staff Margaret instead of generating income, possibly because they may have enough to retire her to the board next turn. Staffing cards is the only way to get them to the next round. All cards not staffed or played must be discarded to the player discard pile at the end of the action phase. Staffing cards impacts the player's passive income for the next round. That completes the action phase items. Before we move to round reset, let's look at some of the hiring pool cards with other types of effects. Maurice is a smuggler. He is special in that if he's in the player's hand or staff during the auction phase, they can play him immediately to purchase a rocket part, but not a rocket engine, at the base cost, regardless of any other bids on that part. Olivia is a fixer. The player can use her to remove a board member from any other player's board of directors. She's also permanently out of the game once used. Oliver is used to retire any card the player has, including executives. This can be handy if you have an extremely expensive executive. Round reset. To advance the hiring pool, remove the card in the furthest slot and move all other cards as far out as they will go while keeping 6 total slots. Place the removed card into the hiring pool discard. If the outermost card slot is blank, do not discard any card. Only move the rest outward. Refill any open slots with cards from the hiring pool deck. If the hiring pool deck runs out of cards, shuffle the hiring pool discard and create a new deck. Factories advance like the hiring pool. If there is a piece in the furthest spot, recycle it and move all others forward. Then use the factory die to randomly select the new pieces. If the die rolls a piece that is unavailable, roll again until you get an available part. Refill the investment area of the bank to have the number of players minus 1 type of each type of investment. Move the first player token to the left. Advance the meteor. All players draw hands up to 5 cards. Note, if the player's deck has fewer than 5 total cards, they play with a smaller hand. Round reset is best done by sharing the duties amongst all players to speed total play. The Apocalypse. The Apocalypse begins if play reaches 3 years left, or if a player lost. When a player has all 3 engines installed and at least 9 of the 12 spots in each section of the rocket filled, they may launch at the end of the round. Launching destabilizes the meteor's orbit and begins the apocalypse. Move the meteor to the 3 slot on the apocalypse track. Apocalypse play. Any players that have launched take no actions. The remaining players have 3 turns to get off the planet. Gameplay changes with the bank recalling all player investments and reimbursing them at the minimum bid cost. Rocket parts continue to be produced, but are no longer recycled. The hiring pool continues to place another card each round, but no longer discards the last card. The game ends when all players have launched or humanity runs out of time. Scoring. Players score points based on launch order, with 8 settlement points for the first to launch, 4 settlement points for the second, and 2 settlement points for the third. If players launch in the same round, they split those points evenly, rounded down. Players receive 1 settlement point for each filled square in their rocket. Players receive 1 settlement point for each survival cash card they have. Players also receive points for driving forward rocket engine technology, and they should have already allocated the settlement points for each of their installed rocket engines. A player with the most settlement points wins. Thank you for your time today, and we hope that you will enjoy playing Space Shot.